First, Cal Raleigh making history, hit his 50th home run last night, the first catcher in Major League history to hit 50 homers in a single season. Did it in a Mariners 9-6 win over the Padres. That's a big series for both. This is a switch-hitting catcher. Leads his league in win probability as well. That's clutch, and also excels behind the plate. So, as Raleigh is making history, what are the best catching seasons of all time? Let's do a little historical digging in and see who he's chasing. Let's start with one main contender, in my view. Most recent, Buster Posey, 2012. This is a 25-year-old Posey hitting .336, leading the National League in batting average. He doesn't have the monstrous totals of some of the other contenders, but he's in a very tough hitter's park back then. It gives him a league-leading 171 OPS plus. He has the most caught stealing in the league that year, but his caught stealing percentage is a bit low at 30%. All right, so while we're introducing this, here are the park-adjusted hitting numbers for catchers in a single season. We're going to count 450 plate appearances and up. Mike Piazza has the top two, number one and number two. Then Joe Mauer, then Buster Posey. A couple of anomalous, great seasons. Explosions are here as well. Javi Lopez, 2003. Chris Hoyles, who knew? 1993. Where's Cal Raleigh? There he is right there, with the 168. Right under Lopez, right above Johnny Bench, 1972. How about Carlton Fisk? 1972. That's his rookie season. So take a look. Greatest park-adjusted hitting numbers, single season at the position. OPS plus adjusts for the run-scoring level of the league that season. You can make comparisons between the years. So let's keep going back in time. Joe Mauer, 2009, the only catcher to lead his league in the slash line triple crown, hitting .365. Wow. 444 on base, slugging .587. Now, 2 years earlier, he led the American League in caught stealing percentage. But this particular season, 2009, it was down to 26%. Still won the Gold Glove that year. Make of that what you will. Another big offensive year for a catcher. Maybe the best, Mike Piazza, 1997. Best OPS plus and most runs created for any catcher in a single season in the modern era. And tied with Johnny Bench back in 1970 for the most total bases. Offensively, look, Piazza's the man. But that season, he caught just 27% of base stealers. Piazza would give up the most stolen bases in his league 9 of 10 seasons in his prime. He could hit better than anyone, but that has to factor in. He could not hold the running game down. One catcher that doesn't always make these discussions, Gary Carter. Carter in 1982 in Montreal, second highest single-season WAR of any catcher. He had a terrific slash line that year, nearly a 300, 400, 500 guy. You can see the numbers right there. That's in a low-run scoring season. Carter could block, frame, hold down the running game. He threw out 40% of steal attempts that season. We'll talk to Ron Darling about Carter. Carter led the National League in WAR that year because of his all-around excellence. Ronnie, of course, threw to Gary Carter. Next up, Johnny Bench, 1972. You could pick either of Bench's MVP years, 1970 or this one, but in 72 he had the higher OPS plus and a tougher run-scoring season. Bench led the National League, 40 homers, 125 RBIs, had 16 more walks than strikeouts. But his real calling card, a shutdown of the running game in a real stolen base era. He led the National League with a staggering 56% caught stealing percentage that year. That wasn't even his best defensive season. He was better in 1968. This is the difference maker. You could not run on Johnny Bench. Now, if we go back to the old days, remember, Yogi Berra and Roy Campanella were both three-time MVPs back in the 50s and 60s. Yogi and Bench, in my view, are locked up for best catcher of all time. But for one season, I want to pick 1953, Campy Campanella has a compelling case. Gaudy numbers, 41 homers, 142 RBIs, slugged over 600. His calling card, though, the highest win probability added for a catcher in a single season. The writers watched the games in person back then. They knew Campy led to winning for the Brooklyn Dodgers. You can't just dismiss him because his retroactive WAR is a bit lower. I'm not doing that. I'm not a slave to WAR. There, though, are the best, I think, catchers single season in the history of the game. If I'm picking one, I'll go shorthand. Johnny Bench, age 24 season, 1972. Tremendous power, and in any era, you could not run on him. Let us know what you think. Who do you think had the best catching season of all time? Pudge Rodriguez, Mickey Cochran, a few of the names that not mentioned that could be in the running. I can't be out here for a whole half hour. Alex, if I could, I would. I could do a half-hour essay. You guys would just be sitting here. I don't want that. Our guests have arrived. The thinking players, Alex Avila, longtime catcher. Alex, great to have you back on the show.
Thanks, BK.
Excited to see you on MLB 10. The other night, you popped up on MLB 10. I'm like, yes, Alex is back. Ron Darling is here as well. Ron, great to see you.
Great to see you, BK.
All right, so before we talk about Gary Carter specifically,
Sure.
give me your all-around impressions, because you got to see Johnny Bench play, maybe a little later in his career, but you saw some of these guys. What do you think?
Carlton Fisk. I saw a lot of these guys play. I think the essay was really good, trying to put Cal in the formation of all these great catchers. When I think of catchers, I'm with you. Johnny Bench, to me, was the benchmark, pardon the pun. And I used to watch him as a kid. I saw him later in his career. And he was transformative as far as the catching position was concerned. All the catchers I met when I was a kid, they shake your hand and one finger would go one way, one finger would go the other way. Bench instituted the one-hand catching, hand behind him to protect that hand to be able to throw. And that changed the catching position forever.
Okay, now, again, I went a lot on hitting numbers here. Obviously, Alex, you know the total game. What's your overall view for best ever?
Well, best ever. Look, I've never saw Johnny Bench play in person or, obviously. Yeah. But hearing stories from my grandfather, from my dad, about Johnny Bench, I think that's the best season in totality. When you're talking about offense, defense, everything, all-encompassing. Mike Piazza was my favorite because that's kind of during my time as a kid growing up watching the game, and just the connection with Tommy Lasorda and the Dodgers and my grandfather. So, he was the one that I always kind of fixated on because I loved what he was doing, and he was my favorite player at the time. And from your essay, I thought for sure Pudge would be in there, his 99 season, when it comes to offense and defense, plus also doing it in Texas, catching every single day in Texas. I mean, I would go in there on occasion and, catch a series in the middle of the summer, and I'm done after 1 or 2 games.
Yeah.
At
his peak, by the way, Pudge Rodriguez, not the other Pudge, Pudge Fisk and Pudge Rodriguez. Pudge Rodriguez, it was a high run scoring environment, so his OPS plus is not going to be as high because run scoring was higher, but his numbers are impressive, and his caught stealing are phenomenal. So you led the league, I think, 2-3 times in caught stealing percentage. You tell me how vitally important, especially back in those days, even though you're back 10 years, in limiting a team running wild on you.
Well, I mean, it's big because the whole thing about catching is you're trying to prevent any run scoring. So your job as a catcher, one is, being able to be in sync with your pitcher as far as the game calling. That's number one. But then you're preventing 90 feet. So that's blocking and throwing. And the throwing aspect, though, there is a relationship with the pitcher as far as his ability to be able to hold runners on. So, there's a lot you can do as a catcher, but there's also a lot you need to happen in order to give yourself an opportunity. Now, you can make up for that with some, elite pop times, your good footwork and fundamentals if you have a pitcher that's a little bit slower. But that is vitally important because your primary job is to prevent 90 feet.
Right.
And the other thing for catching, too, everyone talks about arm strength. Arm strength and quickness is important, but you want to be just quick enough. But the biggest thing is accuracy. So, when you want to give your middle infielders a chance to be able to apply a tag. So you may not need the strongest arm. You still need to be quick.
Right.
You just need to be accurate first and foremost. That was always something that I strived for. It's I probably didn't have the strongest arm in the league the times during I caught, but I was just quick enough, and I was very accurate with the throws. So it gave my middle infielders a chance to put
There's
the tag.
The ball. It's right there.
Exactly. Today's game, it's way different now with the rule changes as far as holding runners on.
Harder, yeah.
It's a much more difficult game, I feel for a catcher in the physical standpoint than it was before.
I know in just going through the list, I wanted to get Gary Carter in, Ronnie, and I know you threw the Gary, but it's interesting. Again, he had the second highest WAR of any catcher in history. Now, it's retroactive WAR. WAR loves Gary Carter more than the baseball writers love Gary Carter. Year 6 on the Hall of Fame ballot. Way too long. So what are we not seeing in just the raw offensive numbers that Gary Carter brought?
Well, the raw offensive numbers are things that you can't quantify. When you did not want to face Gary Carter when men were on base. He was that kind of hitter, always seemed to come through. He had the power, but also was a hitter as well, the kind of guy that would take a base hit if he needed a base hit. He had such a presence in the box. And then if you want to talk about the catching, in a period in the 70s and 80s where stealing bases was one of the big parts of the game. You think about the Cardinals in the 80s, his own teammate, Tim Raines, one of the best stolen base leaders of all time. The other thing he brought, blocking. He had one of the best arms I've ever seen from a catcher, but most importantly, for those young Mets teams, as far as the pitchers were concerned, only National League ball, no interleague ball. He knew the entire National League. They didn't have the computer with all the printouts of a guy's tendencies. He had them all in his head.
Wow.
He called every game. I would say when I pitched to Gary, very rare maybe to shake him off 3 times maybe would be a high number for any kind of game.
See, right, there's such a vast intangible that is real about catching.
Well, that part of the game,
we can barely touch.
Well, that
really.
part of the game has changed quite a bit
that's
today,
true.
where you know, even early in my career, there was a lot of prep that went between the catcher and the pitcher. Now, there's still a lot of prep in today's game, but there's so much also information now that before a game, you know, a catcher and a pitcher gets a stack as far as like, hey, these are hitter's weaknesses, this is your pitcher's strengths, this is the plan of attack from the get-go. So there's a lot less, I think, that has to go into it for a catcher.
Right.
Between that and then also the fact that, you know, they're not having to worry about putting, you know, signals and having multiple signals with the pitch comm. That was a major thing, especially, you know, during my career.
So things have been added but taken away.
Absolutely. It's a give and take, but from a physical standpoint, with the stuff that guys feature now, where it's like, you know, every pitcher, you know, from your starting rotation through your bullpen is throwing, you know, 95 to 100 with, you know, a 92-mile-an-hour slider. Like the physicality of it, I think has gotten tougher.
Right. We're going to again, as we go along, we'll do a lot more on Cal Raleigh. Raleigh is entering the conversation at the very least, and you can see, wow, you know, Joe Mauer's 2009 is there, Buster Posey's 2012 is there. I think Cal Raleigh's 2025 is going to be somewhere on that list.